Hey, if you're someone who feels stuck in your career, wrestling with self-doubt, or quietly wondering if there's more you're capable of, this episode is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
It was really just reverse engineering the past 10 years. So going from, I guess, where I am now to what I was in Australia, where I hit rock bottom, without sounding dramatic, in terms of like the failings with the company and the failings on, I guess, my confidence and things like that. So the lessons really are because like we all stand on the shoulders of giants. It's a bit of a term that you hear out there, but I can't get to where I've got, and I'm sure you can't get to where you've got without sort of what I call destiny helpers, or what other people will call mentors. And basically, destiny helpers are if you're doing the right things, like people will show up in your life. And
Let me ask you this. What if the very things you see as setbacks, failures, or detours are actually the raw materials shaping who you're becoming? Here on the Audacious Living Podcast, we have bold, honest conversations designed to help you live your best, audacious life ever, not through hype or perfection, but through real experiences, real lessons, and the courage to keep showing up even when it's uncomfortable. Today, I'm joined by Gary Daly. Gary has spent over 15 years building a global tech career across multiple countries, but his journey goes far deeper than job titles. Through personal development, resilience building experiences like cold plunges and relocation, as well as his book, Built by Lessons, Gary helps people reframe failure, quiet imposter syndrome, and step into growth with curiosity and intention. This conversation is about trusting the process, embracing discomfort, and understanding that audacity doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like taking the next step before you feel ready. So now that we're set to go, let's get into it. Hey, Gary, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here, my friend.
no, thank you so much. No, looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, no, look, I always talk about the opportunity to engage in dialogue that potentially can help other people. It's really great. And oftentimes we use an analogy of life being like a pathway, right? So we're on our own individual path. Gary, you're doing your path. I'm doing mine. And, I'm going to have my own set of obstacles and challenges, and you're going to have yours. And, really it's incumbent on us to find a way to get past these boulders in our pathways, right? Whether we go up, over, around, or through, because on the other side is where the greatness lies, right? That's where, the greatest rewards, the gifts, it makes the journey worth it, if you will. And so we sort of operate on that premise from an encouragement standpoint on this podcast, really to embrace this best audacious life. And I think so on that theme of challenges and setbacks is something that you spend a lot of time. You got a book, Built by Lessons, that we'll get into, but certainly the idea of taking those experiences and using them to become better, or improve your situation, or even help others, is all encompassing that. So as a starting point, Gary, maybe I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and talk about the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, as I said, my name is Gary Daly, and I actually work for a very large tech company.
Okay.
I'm based in the UAE, and I recently just completed a coaching diploma. So I'm looking eventually to move into actually coaching people. So I've been working in IT sales for around about 15 plus years, and I've very much been on sort of a personal development journey. So from working from a startup that basically went into bankruptcy, to then getting into personal development,
Mhm.
attending seminars on business and life, and then basically relocating from Australia to London, where it never worked before, and having a blank canvas and going from the most junior person in the company into sort of a very much senior position that I'm in now. And having several sort of relocations as well. So that's sort of my story in a
Right.
nutshell.
And so the relocations have been because of work. That's why you've done that.
Yeah, because of work, and I'm always sort of led, should I say, I almost think it's like a spiritual thing as well. Like, I go with the flow. So these things have happened sort of by, I guess, by means of my work. So relocating from, I guess, Australia was because I was getting out of a vehicle that wasn't supporting me, moving to London to a vehicle of expression, as my coach Aidan O'Brien calls it in work in London, then relocating to Ireland because of work, and then relocating to the UAE because of work as well. So
Oh
yeah,
boy. Oh boy. So your bags are never fully unpacked, I'm guessing.
never know. And I mean, now I have a lot more bags than when I first came here, but that's a good thing, you know.
No, I hear you. Never mind you. Here we go. If your company has a way to fix lights, let me know. Okay.
We'll try.
No, I certainly hear you on that. So talk to me about how the personal development side of you sort of evolved. So you're working, you've got this tech career going on, and then you sort of you what triggered you to have this interest in professional development where you're helping people get through challenges and encouraging them to transform the failed issues into wonderful things and build their resilience. Where that all come from for you?
So that really came from when I first started working in the professional and the corporate world. And really, I always make the point like when I was in university and I had a lovely childhood, amazing. But really, the goals were set by the institutions, you know, and by society. It's like, hey, you should go to university, get a good job. So I did all that. Then I went backpacking and ended up in Australia. So I'm from Ireland, went to Australia to live sort of for a year, but ended up actually several
Just
years.
randomly Australia, like
Everyone in Ireland is obsessed with a show called Home and Away, and you see the beaches and the nice weather, and you know it's generally raining and
I
windy
gotta
where
be
I'm from.
there. I gotta be there.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
get it.
So we went to Australia, and then I joined a startup because I didn't really know what to do. I had my degrees, but then I saw that everyone was sort of going into sales when you didn't know what you wanted to do, which was quite interesting. And then I worked for the startup, and in 2 weeks, I was supposed to get my paycheck, and the first check bounced. And it turned out that that was sort of a theme for the next couple of years with the company. But rather than sort of, I guess, admit failure, I wanted to succeed, so I started taking it on myself personally. So I went to a business seminar. Thanks to my twin brother who had a ticket to, it was a National Achievers Congress, and I'd never been to anything like this before. So it really was like seeing the Matrix. It was like, oh my God, there's a way for me to develop myself personally. I don't need someone else to tell me what to do.
Hmm.
And, you know, I saw Tony Robbins as the first speaker. Can you imagine what are the odds? And then I just became sort of obsessed with it, reading, testing out things in work, like sales tactics or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And even just things like going to the gym, because I saw that like a lot of these people were sort of physically fit as well. And I realized actually I can change my body, whereas I was this sort of tall, lanky, skinny guy from Ireland. And just everything sort of from there, from my health, wealth, love, and fulfillment, I
Mhm.
realized that I could actually set goals. And I've been doing that for several years. And I guess, you know, now I'm at that crossroads where maybe I want to go and teach that. So hence I've done the coaching diploma and really been blown away by that.
I love the sort of the intention around helping others. That for me is always it's always really exciting where you go through something, you go through the experiences, you have these eureka moments, you develop these new concepts, and you're like, okay, I want to help others right away. Like that to me is why, you know, not trying to keep it to yourself, really trying to expand that. And so so kudos to you. So on that theme of helping others, it led you to become an author, and you wrote a book called Built by Lessons. What does that phrase mean to you, that title mean to you, and why did you choose that for your book?
So I think when I look back on what I've done, and the reason I wrote the book is I had a book in my head, and I think everyone does, and it was really just reverse engineering the past 10 years. So going from, I guess, where I am now to what I was in Australia, where I hit rock bottom, without sounding dramatic, you know, in terms of like the failings with the company and the failings on, I guess, my confidence and things like that. So
Mhm.
the lessons really are because like we all stand on the shoulders of giants. It's a bit of a term that you hear out there, but I can't get to where I've got, and I'm sure you can't get to where you've got without sort of what I call destiny helpers, or what other people will call mentors. And basically, destiny helpers are, if you're doing the right things, like, people will show up in your life. And
Right.
it's not like the secret is amazing and I love it and I'd recommend it to anyone, but obviously you need to take action. You can't just wish things were better. You have to actually go out there, go to seminars, go to networking, like, put yourself under pressure. It could be going to Toastmasters to improve your public speaking. And all of a sudden, like, people will actually start to show up into your life. And it could just be as simple as, I took out the bins one day a couple of years ago in Ireland and talked to my neighbor, and he was the CEO of a wealth management company. And I asked him about investments, and I'd never really been into investments. And all of a sudden, I'm having a conversation with the CEO of a wealth management company, and that, like, creates ripple effects then for your life in a way. And it's genuine curiosity. And that's what I found. But, like, this, the smartest people, or what you would perceive to be the smartest people, are really just the ones who sort of take action and realize that it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to, I
Right.
guess, shoot your shot, so to speak.
Yep, 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 yep. I'm really, I get excited when I hear the word curiosity when we get in these sort of conversations, because I think, to me, I mean, I'm a naturally just sort of curious kind of person in general, but I didn't recognize how, you hear that, the superpower, right? Like, super curiosity is a superpower because it unlocks so much. I believe wholeheartedly in the fact that it suspends judgment. So you can't be curious but then hold a judgment about something at the same time. It's kind of one or the other. And so it actually, I think what it does, it allows for more openness, more acceptance, more understanding, because if you generally want to know something, you're generally going to ask. And so I'm a really big fan of curiosity, and so I love the way you incorporated that. um, so becoming an author, I think, is a big step, and was that something you pondered for a very long time, or did you sort of just jump at it and go and let's do this thing?
So, interesting enough, so this is like a physical book, but about 10 years ago when I started going to the business seminars, and I wasn't quote unquote successful, I did come out with an ebook. And then it was just always something I felt like, okay, I didn't really put things into practice. It was more just observations of the
Mhm.
lessons that I learned, which are still really good. And I was really surprised because I reached out to, people for testimonials, like Brian Tracy's and things like that. And I actually got a testimonial from him, which was amazing. But I always felt like, okay, now that I've put stuff into action, and I do think that, a lot of what I've said has worked, I feel like I need to actually tell my story, not just the theory. I wanted to put the theory into practice, and
Mhm.
I felt like, I think the reason people write a book is the who is you, and the who was me 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I wanted to write the book for that person. And it might be a cliche thing, but it's so true. Like, if I had had that book back then, maybe I could have accelerated the sort of the growth and the learnings. And that's really why I wrote the book. And of course, if someone else could benefit, all the better.
Sure,
And
sure.
I don't have targets or anything that in terms of book sales or anything. It's really just, I genuinely want to help people. And even recently, like, I met a couple of students at a tech event, and they were just saying, "Oh, how am I going to get a job?" And, like, this is, it's a very difficult environment. And I thought this is perfect for someone like that. And actually, they were way ahead of me when I was
Yeah.
22 or 23. So, it's sort of for that early in career, or someone who's maybe stuck in their career, maybe wants to change, because I feel like I've went through some of that
Sure.
as well. So there's just some of the reasons why I came out with the book.
I like that. The who is you, and I would agree. Sometimes I mean, I've said many times that even this podcast, it's much for me as anyone else, right? And I don't stand here going, audacious every day, and this is why you do it. I've got my dips and my moments, and every so often the imposter syndrome says, "Hey, what are you doing?" and that kind of thing. I think the difference with me, and we'll sort of jump into this, is I think my level of resilience, because after you do something for a while, you kind of get better at it. So my level of resilience and ability to sort of get past those things quicker it's more rapid. So because so for example, like I remember when I started this podcast. So just for context, the very first podcast that I did was in 2008. Since 2008 up until 2020, when this one started at the end of 2020, I had already done 6 or 7 different podcasts, different genres, different, but again, all in the podcasting scope. I get, and then there was a bit of a break. There's probably maybe like a 2 year, 2 or 3 year window. I hadn't done any kind of podcasting. And I go, yeah, it's time to get back into it again. Let's go. I start this one, and all of a sudden the thoughts come in. Yeah, you don't know how to do this anymore. What are you talking about? Like podcasting, like you're a dinosaur. The way people are doing now is so different than when you did it. Like, and all these sorts of things that I'm going, huh? But again, I didn't stay in that place because I've got the history now. I've got the track record. I've done this for a really, really long time. And so why can't I? Why shouldn't I jump back on it again? So yeah, that's just an example of the creep that comes in, the doubt that sort of seeps in our way to kind of tell you you can't do things when you have every right to claim them. And so the idea of building our resilience. And again, I would imagine, for example, in your case, moving around different countries has a lot to help your mindset and your resilience. So I wonder if is so. I think really what I want to get into with you is the importance of trying things and having those experiences to help build your resilience. I wonder if you could touch on that.
Sure, yeah, and I think like self-doubt is such an interesting one. And I'm part of a coaching group, and someone asked our coach before, like, will self-doubt ever go away, or imposter syndrome? And you do read some articles that says, yeah, it goes away the more you sort of take action and things like that. But the reality is it probably doesn't. But there's something called the man in the arena, and basically, I guess what it boils down to is if you keep swinging the bat, as in like practicing, going out there, taking action, there's always going to be self-doubt. It's only if you put the bat down and go back into the stands, there'll be no imposter syndrome because you're not actually doing anything. So I always think that's quite interesting. And I was at a business seminar before, and someone talked about like if you're stuck now, like look back at the last 10 years and look at how much that you've grown and that you've succeeded. And then, the next 10 years is going to be even better. And I think that that's a good mindset to sort of go back to. And it could be anything like public speaking. Does it get any easier? I mean, to a certain extent it does, but there's always going to be like butterflies and sort of you're nervous with this stuff. But at least okay, I've done this before. It's not going to be easy. It's just going to be different every time. And I do a lot of, or I did when I was in Ireland, at least, like sort of ice baths or going into the cold water. And it never gets easier. You just get a little bit better. That's sort of
Nice.
the best analogy that I can give you. It's different. It's a different experience every time.
Yeah. So I like that. And I think too, what's really important is those butterflies, those doubts. I don't think they ever go away because I think they're natural. And in fact, I think they serve a purpose in terms of kind of keeping you aware, or maybe that the doubt comes in and it forces you to prep or prepare better, or do things differently to get ready for. So I don't know if having no doubt. I don't know if I don't know. I'm okay with the doubt. I really am, because I think it's a signal to, okay. You know what? Maybe I didn't think of this, or maybe I should add this, or maybe there's another layer to this. So I'm holding on to my doubt. I don't care.
There's healing in the feeling, someone once said to me. So yeah, it's like if
Love
it's
it.
there, there's a reason why
Love
it's
it.
there.
So you talked about the cold plunge escapades and the things that you've done. Climbing a mountain in shorts and like 8 Celsius weather in shorts. You wanna tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a funny story. So I went to a tech conference in Vegas and I landed back in London, and I had an issue with my back, and it turns out it was a slip disc. And I went to a couple of different physios and none of them really got to the root cause. There was one physio who very much focused on my breath and breathing, and he asked me if I'd heard of a guy called Wim Hof. And for your audience, if they don't know, Wim Hof is like this Dutch daredevil who sort of has climbed Mount Everest in a pair of just shorts, and he has sort of world records when it comes to sort of being in the ice, so like an ice bath. And he's very much a believer in like your breathing can actually sort of heal your immune system. And
Mhm.
if you are in ice cold water, you can actually almost like warm your body up and just sort of be in a Zen state while you're in that water. And it's really sort of an analogy for stress. So he always mentions like to do a cold shower in the morning after your warm shower, like just to turn the dial down. And it's really sort of like nothing more can be more stressful than that on that day. So I decided to go all in on this, and it was January 2020, just before COVID really started taking off. And I went to Poland for a week, learned from his methods in terms of breathing, also get into like ice cold water with him and the rest of the group for like 10 minutes, which was, crazy. It was also amazing and beautiful. And then at the end, we climbed a mountain just in a pair of shorts, and it was minus temperatures, like there was snow. And it's really like a hike more than a climb.
Right.
Climbing a mountain sounds a lot better, but I mean, it was a like 3 4 hour hike, and I mean, it was freezing. We actually stopped at the top of the mountain, so it's almost like a silent walk, and you're breathing. You're not really talking to your partner beside you. And there was someone at the top of the mountain who they were driving, right, and their car stopped. So our whole group had to stop, and the top of our group had to push the car. And it was only when we stopped we actually realized that how cold it was. But the mindset and the breathing was helping us sort of, I guess, not focus on that. So I think there's probably several
Hmm.
analogies in there that help me anyways on a daily basis.
When you stop and think about it now, what reflection or thought comes to your mind? Like, is this crazy? How did I do it? Like, or let's do it again. Like,
Yeah, crazy. Like, and I probably can't even imagine it now because I was probably in a very different place then. I mean, it's constantly warm here. It's whereas where I'm from is a bit colder, but it probably once again that's sort of evidence of like me being able to do something that maybe I now thinking, how did I do that? So like once again, you can look back in your sort of, I guess, sort of mental archives and realize, okay, I have conquered stuff before, so therefore I can do it again.
hmm um, you talk about destiny helpers, and I think that's really I'm intrigued by that a little bit, and how they can make a difference in your lives. Maybe you could start to talk about how destiny helpers have sort of made a difference for you. Or what are they
Yeah,
first for the
sure.
audience? Like, let's kind of frame that for audience. What are who are they, and yeah, and, what difference have they made for you?
Yeah, there's this book and it's called The Invisible Thread, and it's actually used this in my wedding speech in a way, but it's basically like you're meant to meet people and there's this invisible thread that might, it never breaks, like it might sort of tangle away, but like as in you're meant to meet these people, but like anything, like there's an action part on you. So really like, and I hear this from several sort of, I guess, gurus or mentors, like that we're like antennas and we're constantly receiving information, like, and potentially your destiny helpers are calling you, or if you say hello to someone in a lift, or once again the curiosity thing, you'll meet these destiny, like they're out there. It's just up to you to be open to receiving, as in being the antenna. Like if you're closed off, if you say no to it, going to an event, or I don't know, going out with friends, things like that, then you're never sort of going to meet these people. But just that, you are meant to meet them, and they're could be a mentor in work, or it could be your friend, or it could be a stranger, whatever it may be. But yeah, I guess the case point being that they're out there. It's just, are you open to actually meeting them? Because we all have destiny helpers if you
Mm-hmm.
put in the work, and you sort of, maybe as this saying goes, like you meet God halfway. Like you have to do your part
Yes.
of the equation.
And the other interesting piece about that is we very well could have already met our helpers and not even knowing that they're there, right? They could be sitting right in front of us, but the openness allows us to recognize that.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The I'm curious on your thoughts. I've been sort of concept I've been sort of thinking about for a while, and it's that point. So you know what? There's that decision point where there's that final decision point you make before you don't have control of a situation, right? Like but there's a series of decisions that you make to get to that point, and you make that final one, and then things happen as they will. Have you had any experience with sort of figuring out if you're at that decision point or not? Because I do really think that that edge of control is so key to understand when you're there. And I think oftentimes it's at that point where that key or vital decision isn't made because like, oh my gosh, I can't do this because I don't have control, and so letting go of that control, I think, is where a lot of people struggle or have difficulty with. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, a really good point. And I think that I started doing coaching like a couple of years ago. So I'm part of like a coaching group, and even the coach says like that this coaching is not about sort of adding on, it's actually about letting go.
Mm,
Like giving up control. And I think when you're in sales, as you probably know, I mean, when you're younger and you're in sales, it's constantly push, 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 and you just see
yes.
the stress and like people are, they obviously work very late at night, and it's really like everything is on this deal, like, and it just consumes everything. It takes up their headspace and their weekend. And I think as you get older, I mean, I'm 39 approaching 40, you actually start to surrender to the process. And it's no different to the cold water as well. Like you can tiptoe in, or you can, try and fight it. But if you actually just surrender and let it sort of hit you, that's all that you can do. And it really is about letting go, and less is more, in a lot of senses as well. You don't have to keep sort of trying to add on more tools. It's actually like about unlearning a lot of things
Right.
as well. So that's sort of what I've found has definitely helped me for sure.
That letting go is the key in there. People have to understand that it's yeah. There's only so much you can do. It's kind of like those, and I think we've all been in those situations where you're waiting for something, and even that wait, there's some heaviness to it, where it's just and so because that heaviness is there, it's like, okay, what can I do? And you start trying to find things to do, and sometimes you make it even worse, right? Because inaction sometimes is a form of action. We can't sit with ourselves because it's so hard,
A
right?
100%, yeah. 100%.
That's it. That's it. So I want to talk about the lessons too, because I really do believe that experiences teaches us lots. And even the concept of failing, I have something I call the fail forward advantage, saying that failing is actually an advantage because it helps move you forward. Because you go through a situation, you walk away with some lessons, you walk away with some insights on how not to do things, you walk away with some understanding of the situation as well as yourself. But it's to embrace that is the toughest thing. And I would suggest that for those who are afraid of failing, there's something more going on. Like it's like there's something more going, whether if there's something unrealized, some subconscious sort of element that's in there that you don't see. But failing isn't something that is meant to be feared, but it is by a lot of people. Just your thoughts on why you think that may be.
Yeah, of course. I think probably it comes from like when you're younger and you're in school, like there's only one right answer, right? Like it's either wrong or it's right.
True.
Whereas like when I think it was maybe Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, who sort of said like in the real world, like there's several different answers, and especially for entrepreneurs, like there's no wrong or right answer. And you look at what other people are doing, whereas in school you're not allowed to look at what your colleagues are doing. You have to just stay in your lane, so to speak. So I think that my mom phrased it really nicely. Like when I had failure when I was in the startup, she sort of said, "This is just a real life university. Like that's all it is, and you sort of have to learn from it. And it's win or learn. Like there's no real failure unless you sort of, I guess, dwindle in the mistake. So it's just feedback. Like it's feedback,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
someone says it's contrast, like there's no light without dark. And if you're working for someone and they're not good, it's just telling you like this is someone that maybe you shouldn't work with or you're not going to get on with. So now you have the contrast of who you should work with,
Right. Right.
so to speak. So I think it's all self-reflection in a lot of ways. And of course, in saying that, it hurts. It
Of
absolutely
course,
does.
sure.
But you just sort of have to get on with it and realize that it's nothing personal. And in a lot of ways it can humble you as well. Like I actually don't know everything. I don't know a lot. And as you get older, you realize that I know nothing, so to speak. So
That
yeah.
is funny. So okay, for that someone who's afraid of stepping into the unknown, and there's a lot. I mean, that's a big thing for a lot of people. What's one question perhaps they could even ask themselves now to sort of begin that? process of getting out of that dark place.
So this is a phrase that I heard from the coach that I mentioned a while ago. So he has a phrase, and I really love this. It's the opposite of your pattern is your solution. And I just think that that's so simple but genius. So I'm not really a good public speaker. That could be one. Okay, then you should go to Toastmasters, like 100%. Or yeah, I'm not really good at this. Like at least go to like there's a seminar, there's a YouTube, there's ChatGPT to chat to, there's countless things that you can do. So I always like that one, like the opposite of your pattern is the solution. So if you're stuck in a pattern or a habit or whatever it is, you do something about it. Like if you're unfit, go to the gym.
Right.
Even just go for a walk, like if it's 10 minutes a day, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that would probably be what how I would address that one.
Yeah, no, I do like that, and I think that's like the fact that someone is willing to ask themselves a question. I want to give them credit because that's a big deal. Because many will sort of not and avoid that conversation, put in the closet, and not go there. But if someone's looking to still, it's one thing when you know within yourself that you're stuck and want to do something about it versus know that whether you're stuck and don't want to do anything about it, right? If you give me the choice,
Exactly.
the person wants to do something, I'm with them all day. Like I'm the ride with them all day because at least because it's got to be an intrinsic thing inside. It can't be the coach pushing you to find the motivation to do something that's better for yourself because you're going to be spinning your wheels, right, as a coach. So
100%.
yeah, okay. Um, yeah, yeah. I'd love also to get. So I mean, after all, this is the Audacious Living Podcast, right? I'd love to get sort of your definition of audacity, and we heard some ways it showed up in your life: the cold plunge challenge, and climbing hills and shorts, and moving to 4 different countries. But I'd like to, yeah, I'm curious if there's something else you could share that sort of falls in that way of thinking, or way of life for you.
Yeah, I think I mean, I always talk about public speaking, right? And I mean, there's a story in the book of me sort of sweating through a suit in university and like
Um,
being bright red and having to leave the presentation afterwards because I was just drenched, as we say in Ireland, like in my suit. And really, then that got me into the whole personal development thing and attending the public speaking Toastmasters. And when I signed up for that, I signed up for something called a table topic, and
yeah.
I didn't realize that I would then have to speak for 2 minutes about a subject I didn't even know they were going to talk about. So they asked me, why should Ant-Man win an Oscar? Go, like you have 2 minutes. And I froze and I mumbled and I wanted the sort of the earth to swallow me up. And then the next speaker came up who was attending like a lot of these sessions and they answered it really well. And I saw that there was sort of a structure to it. So it was, they would ask the audience who here has seen Ant-Man, or they would sort of they knew what they were doing. There was a structure, there was a flow. And I realized quickly after that, like this is an amazing thing to be able to sort of maybe buy time by asking the audience a question or by flipping a question back to the audience, or even things like thinking outside the box. Like, I haven't seen Ant-Man, but so I mean, there was a number of things that I could have done. I just realized there's a structure to this. And then the amazing thing is if you're doing interviews or you're doing a podcast, you can use that structure to just sort of settle you. So you realize that, okay, nothing is going to really catch me out because I have experience with this. And in the book, then I talk about sort of a pitching competition within work, and I was lucky enough to win it 2 years in a row, where I pitched to the CEO of the company. And I mean, there's 80 to 90,000 employees, in the company in general. So it was, amazing to win that, as well. So to me, that was audacious, because if you ask the guy who was sweating in the suit, would he have ever won such a competition? Would have said no.
I'm curious about that structure and how you get Ant-Man to win, convince people Ant-Man should get an Oscar.
Well, I mean, that wasn't part of the pitch. I mean, the pitch moved on from there. It was more on the technology side of things. But yeah, if I answered it again, I would have been playful and mentioned that the actor was in Friends. I watched Friends when he was Phoebe's boyfriend. I would have like just brought it into a different way. And I think maybe this is how politicians work. If they don't know the answer to a question, they can spin it in a different way.
That's it. No, I get it. They're skilled at that. So no, I hear you.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you're hoping to accomplish with your book that you want every reader to walk away with?
I wanted to, I guess, bring clarity to people, and I always talk about this. Sometimes there's a blockage, like, and it's why I got into doing coaching. And I think a lot of people will have a blockage in a certain area of their life. So I just think if that removes some of the blockage so that people can actually have a vision for their future and sort of be able to set goals and actually then understand what a vision is and how they can have a different life in like 6 months or a year or even sooner than that. I think that's sort of the big thing for me. Just to get people like myself who didn't have the confidence back then, just having a bit more clarity in their life. So that would probably be the big thing for me.
Cool, cool. Want to have some fun, some rapid fire questions? How do you feel about that?
Of course, let's
We uh,
go. Let's do it.
we call it the fearless fast round here on the Audacious Living Podcast. And first thing that comes to your mind, first thing you do every morning. What's that?
Wake up would be the first thing, but I think I exercise. Yeah, it's the first thing that I do. So yeah, get like 30, 40 minutes in, hit workout or lifting some weights.
How about one audacious goal that you're still pursuing?
Coaching business is my audacious goal. Yeah,
Hmm. Favorite book or audio that changed your life?
I would probably say The Secret. In all honesty, yeah, that really had a big impact.
Your most embarrassing failure?
Most embarrassing failure. That's a good one. That's actually thrown me. I probably think it was working for that startup and the paycheck bouncing after 2 weeks. So that still stays with me rent free, to be honest. But I'm using it as a fuel
Sure.
at this point.
No, and listen, the fuel, those are great fuels to have, things that you can remember and push you forward. What's one word that defines your life philosophy?
Curiosity.
You got my attention, that's for sure. Cold plunge or sauna, which one?
Cold plunge.
Yeah, okay. You sure? Cold plunge, yeah, sauna.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Definitely. I'm in a sauna at the moment where I live, so in the
Gotcha.
UAE.
Um, when you look back, when you look back 10 years from now, what do you think you'll be most proud of?
My family, I think, definitely, yeah, my wife and son.
Okay, and what's the one thing you tell your younger self?
Go for it. Just go do it. Just do it. It doesn't matter if you fail or if it doesn't go well, just do the thing.
And that's a big one. That's a big one for a lot of people. Don't hold back. And then lastly, how do you celebrate a win?
That is it. That's a good one as well. I probably don't do it enough, to be honest, but I think just booking a nice holiday, a nice retreat where I could just relax and yeah, spend time with the family is probably the key thing.
The celebration of wins to me, I think it's critical, because you give yourself credit for what you've achieved and accomplished, and establishes sort of a flag, right? Where now you have the opportunity. Okay, so now what else can you do? You've done this. What's next? But the other thing that I really think is valuable when it comes to celebrating wins, and I think it really ties into our resilience. It allows you to remember your greatness, and when you're going through difficult periods where you get low and maybe your energy's not there, or your self-doubt is running around in your head and driving you crazy, you can stop for a moment and go, oh yeah, but there was this time that I did this, right? And it allows you to go, okay, and it remembers, yes, if you've done it. So it's almost like, if you've done it before, why can't you do it again? What's holding you back? And if you can't come up with an answer, then there's no reason why you don't proceed. And I think so. It's more about a motivating thing. Is kind of how I encapsulate that.
Yeah, just on that, actually, I have a self-doubt folder in my email. So like if I get a positive email or you win a large deal, I put it in there and then the idea is then to look at it after a year, even 2 years, and for exactly the reason you said.
So it's interesting. I keep all sort of like podcast reviews. Like I get a lot. Like I've just been doing this for a few years. I've 500 plus episodes. So I've done this a couple times, and time whether listeners or guests, they'll send me a note or drop me, and I'll share them on social media. Hey, look, here's so and so said about me, whatever. But I also kind of like to go back to them, and it's funny because it wasn't until and this is why kind of the outside opinion of others I think is key. um, I started to see some comments on, I really like his energy. He's got great energy, great energy. And it wasn't something I was ever conscious of. I've never walked into a situation and go, okay, energy's on, let's go. Like I'm just kind of show up and like sort of be, but those are sorts of things that help alert you to even your own gifts and strengths and areas that you could lean into more because it's being received positively. And so it's actually it's a fine line because as much as I think hearing others is important, it's helpful. I think sometimes it's not helpful at the same time. Like you got to be careful how. So it's a really fine line. But yeah, that's as we're going off on a tangent here. Gary, listen, this has been awesome. I really appreciate this. We had a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I enjoyed it. And the energy definitely I could feel. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. For listeners that wanted to connect with you directly, learn more about your work, where could we send them?
Yes, if you go to LinkedIn, you type in Gary Daly Sales, you'll find me there. And then Amazon is built by lessons for the book, and really appreciate it.
Cool. Well, we will make sure all those appropriate contact details are in the show notes. Again, Gary, thank you for this. This is it's been a blast, a lot of fun. Really appreciate hearing your journey and the development steps that you've taken personally to get you where you are now. So congratulations for that. And thanks again for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you.
Back we are here on the podcast. One of the biggest takeaways from my conversation with Gary, it's got to be this. Resilience isn't built by avoiding discomfort. It's built by repeatedly choosing to step into it. What I loved about Gary's perspective is how grounded it is. From redefining failure as feedback to leaning into curiosity as a life philosophy to understanding that self-doubt doesn't disappear. You just get better at moving forward with it. That's real life growth. Gary's journey reminds us that audacity doesn't mean reckless leaps. It means intentional action, surrendering control when needed, and trusting that the lessons you're living through are shaping you for what's next. If you want to connect with Gary, learn more about his work, or check out his book, Built by Lessons, make sure you visit the show notes. We got you covered. You'll find the links to his LinkedIn account as well, where to grab his book, which is on Amazon. Again, it's Built by Lessons. And as you reflect on today's conversation, here's the analogy I'll leave you with. Life is a cold plunge. You can tiptoe in, overthink it, and hesitate, or you can commit, breathe through the shock, and realize you're stronger than you thought once you stop fighting the moment. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, leave a review, and make sure you're subscribed every time you choose growth, curiosity, and courage. You're not just changing your own life, you're creating ripples that helps others do the same. Until next time, keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.